Hey everyone, it's Susan with Sharksploitation Sunday. Today we're going to talk about a species that we don't often see in shark movies. We're going to focus today on one of the fastest fish in the sea and an apex predator all its own, the mako shark. Yeah, there's a couple movies, one that came out in 2021 and one that came out in 1999 that we're going to talk about. One is fabulous, one not so much. Let's get started with the first movie, 2021's Mako. So this is an Egyptian movie and it's mostly subtitled, not all, but most, which didn't bother me. What bothered me is the fact that this is just an underwater soap opera and really doesn't have much to offer as far as shark attacks or shark footage. I mean, it's there, but if you advertise as a shark movie, I want to see some fucking sharks. In the beginning of the movie, you see these shady fishermen out on the sea and they're baiting something. And then we see a couple mako sharks show up. And I have to say I was impressed because the sharks actually do look like mako sharks. Look, this one. Here's a real one. I mean, that's pretty good, right? The plot of the movie focuses around a team of documentarians led by the woman Rana and her husband Sharif. And the whole thing starts off as she's accepting a prestigious award, and it turns out that it wasn't meant for her. They made a mistake, and it actually goes to her husband. So she kind of becomes like really embarrassed, and she's like the laughingstock of social media in Egypt. This is a really ambitious woman, so she just gets a fire lit under her ass, and she's like, bring me some good ideas. I want to win this goddamn award. A new woman joins the crew and she's got this bright idea. Let's explore this wreck of the Salem Express. And she tells this harrowing tale about how it was wrecked in 1991 and 400 people were killed. And in the beginning of the opening credits, I did notice it said inspired by true events. So I looked it up and there was a wreck, and it did kill a bunch of people. So it is based on real events. Now, the rest of it, probably not so much, and it didn't really say anything about mako sharks in the article I read. Her whole thing is that all the divers that dive on this wreck come back depressed. Now, I'm not sure if that was a translation error. I don't know that I would watch a documentary about a wreck that makes divers depressed. Maybe they should make a documentary about shark movies that make shark movie fans depressed. Because this is one of them. Off they go. They meet up with a couple of dive masters who actually know what they're doing, and they give them a lot of warnings. This wreck is very dangerous. You're going to get the bends. It's super cold. You're going to run out of air, blah, blah, blah. So down they all go. There's a fixed line that brings them down to the wreck. They're filming all of the footage, and there's a surprise attack. Comes out of nowhere. Somebody gets eaten. It's not gory. You don't get to see much, but you do see enough of this mako shark. At this point in time, it's got a little sideways, so it looks a little bit different than what a normal mako shark would look like. Honestly, we don't even know what the mako sharks are doing there. Nothing is really explained very well. After the surprise attack, they all flee inside of the wreck for refuge. And the makos are keeping them in there because they're kind of swimming around the wreck. And they all kind of go off on their separate ways and they get lost. Now, I don't know how big this shipwreck is, but it doesn't seem big enough for everybody to be so lost. There are a couple of tragic deaths that happen, and they're mostly non-shark related. I mean, they're just kind of other things that happen. Like this guy gets his foot trapped in a heavy metal steel door, and another guy kind of falls into a diabetic coma. And there's a guy who starts to go Looney Tunes because he's a cokehead, and you shouldn't be diving after you've just done like Tony Montana levels of coke. Kudos to the movie Mako for ripping off not one but two other shark movies. Cutting of the Hand, of course, we know from Deep Blue Sea, and The Hallucination from Narcosis we know from 47 Meters Down. So the underwater drama continues. The remaining people kind of meet back up. They start turning on each other, and then it just goes haywire at the end. I mean, I don't even know what the heck was going on. Pretty much everybody dies. Yeah, I know that's a huge spoiler, but this movie isn't good enough for me to really care about that. Everybody dies. The end. It's on Netflix, but I would really recommend you skip it. And I know it's really disappointing because it focuses on a mako shark, and we really wanted it to be good, but it's just not. But enough about that. Let's talk about the good one. This movie is one of the best shark movies I think that's ever been done post Jaws, and focuses on mako sharks. I know you know it's 1999's Deep Blue Sea. And I would not be using hyperbole when I say that this really set the gold standard for shark movies, that we're just replicating Jaws' DNA up until 1999 when this movie came out. Gone are the mindless killing machines of old. Here come the smart sharks. The science, albeit a little far-fetched, is plausible and it's really interesting. The suspense and stakes are super high, and then of course there is that so imitated scene of the surprise attack. I mean, it shows up so much after Deep Blue Sea. You can just see how influential this movie was. This movie takes place in Aquatica, a floating laboratory that has tendrils that go deep down into the sea. Russell Franklin, the financier of the operation, visits the facility after lead researcher Dr. Susan McAllister tries to mitigate the fact that one of her sharks escaped and attacked some folks on a boat. A holding tank at the top of the facility holds a tiger shark that's getting wrangled by the handsome and rugged Carter. Does this shark look like a real tiger shark? No. Do the Mako sharks look like real Mako sharks? No. But this movie is so good that, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and forgive it. Carter maneuvers one of the Mako sharks into the laboratory pool, and Dr. Jim Whitlock and Dr. Susie harvest a protein complex from its brain. Until the allegedly tranquilized Mako shark wakes up and rips off Dr. Jim's arm. Oops. Well, shit. Now they have to evacuate Jim from the remote facility just as a horrendous storm moves in. Down goes the chopper, and down goes Jim, back into the drink, and a Mako grabs Jim and his stretcher and slams it through the laboratory glass. So this floods and destabilizes the entire structure. So if there's water in them halls, there's going to be shark in them halls, and these are smart sharks, so they're basically fucked. What follows is an absolute masterpiece of adrenaline. The crew all heads to this submersible that they're going to use to try to get to the surface, but they find out it's like horrifically damaged from the explosion. And Russell ends up giving a rousing pep talk to galvanize the group into a fight for survival when, bam, there's that surprise attack. Watching the movie in the theater, I fucking screamed. And that, folks, sparked a whole generation of shark movies ripping that thing off. But usually now you can smell it coming a mile away, so the effect is a little lost. Far from a soap opera, you really like these characters, and there's this great comic relief that's introduced with LL Cool J's character, Preacher. Still to this day, whenever someone pisses me off, I always say, "You killed my bird." These sharks want revenge. They seem to understand what's been done to them, and their eyes are on murder and escape into the deep blue sea. And the climax is part comeuppance and part redemption. The final surviving characters are exactly who you wanted to survive. It's just pure excellence. Deep Blue Sea produced a couple of sequels. We have 2018's Deep Blue Sea 2 and 2020's Deep Blue Sea 3. And I really wish they didn't do that. But we'll leave the discussion of those sequels for another time, so make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out. If you're interested in purchasing my book, Encyclopedia Sharksploitanica, as always, you can do that through the link in the description box below. I'll see you next time. Bye!